Hey, we're live. Welcome to the First Layer. My name's Richard, and you know that guy over there. That is Brian Baker. Say hello, Brian.
Hey guys, how's it going? Happy Sunday. Thanks for joining us on the Sunday instead of the Saturday because I felt like I had the Black Plague and I don't know. It was a weekend.
It was one of those things. He was celebrating early. I don't know why, but anyway. No, we had some technical difficulties late in the game last night, so we decided that we just put it over till today. And you can see we've got a nice new ticker down at the bottom. That's to help everybody in their quest to find information about us. Let's say hello to Rex Waldy, Mark L. Baker from here in Calgary. We've got Robert 954. Hello from South Florida. He says Trevor Rickards over in Indiana. Dennis Allard from Calgary, welcome. We've got Ben Brady from Texas. The Scarecrow, hello. Joseph Jolly, good evening from Orlando, Florida. SpaceX is on its way to the International Space Station. Awesome.
Sure is.
And then we've got David Sell, Gary T, Peter Reynolds, RT, our good friend Richard Taylor, Sib Husky Mustache. Yes, I did shave. If you haven't noticed, I actually don't look like a street bum anymore. Robert Marvin from Southern California. Jake Stobert from Calgary. Hello, Jake. Andrew Murphy from Texas. David and DeWitt. That's our good friend Tim. Good evening, gentlemen. He's here in Calgary. There's Mika and Snapshot FPV. Hello to everybody this evening. I hope I got you all. Just want to let you know, there's Luke Murray. Holy cow, everybody's coming. Andrew Humphreys. Humphrey, not Humphreys. Humphrey.
It was a good chance, or good attempt.
Yeah. Well, if it's Humphrey, then it's not hump cost, right? Sorry, I had to make a joke at your expense. That's a bad dad joke. Or an old hooker joke, depending on your point of view.
This is what happens when we go live on Sundays.
Yeah, this is what happens when we go live on Sundays. Hawkes. I always get that guy's name wrong.
Hawks.
Hello. So this evening we are going to answer your questions as we always do. We have a nice new ticker down at the bottom of our screen to kind of remind you where to find us and where to send your questions to questions@thefirstlayer.com. We also have our super chat turned on tonight. So if you'd like to get your question to the head of the line or you'd just like to help us out because you think that we're doing a fantastic job over here, you can always use that super chat down at the bottom. Brian, let's get into it right now. First and foremost, let's talk about SpaceX before we do anything, because we both have SpaceX rockets. Mine is flyable, yours is not. Mine is not flyable for my fat butt to get into it and go to the moon. Mine is just that size.
Yeah, hobbyist size.
Hobbyist size, that's right.
Something we're legally allowed to fire. And even that feels like a stretch at times.
Yes, that feels like a stretch at times for sure. So they have launched again successfully. Congratulations to SpaceX and the crew. And we hope that their journey to the International Space Station goes well. And I do believe that we will see a lot more from SpaceX in the very near future. And I can't be happier that the U.S. now has a space program again. I really can't. I think that's amazing, not only for guys of my generation who got to see Apollo land on the moon and followed that journey back in the late 60s and through the 70s and 80s, all the way through the space shuttle program, to your generation that got the space shuttle program and now are seeing that next evolution.
And we never saw the Buran fly, so all we've had is that and the Soyuz, right?
Exactly. So now we are back in the game, and Canada Space Agency is doing their best to be a whole part of this, not only with astronauts and their astronaut training program, which is also in tandem with NASA, but Canada has a long history in the space program, and we couldn't be prouder of their efforts and see what they can do next and getting us up to the moon and maybe finally getting a base before I die, or at least starting a base before I die. And hopefully
speaking of space, I didn't realize they've got a little 3D printer now on the space station, eh?
Oh, do they? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they've got this one. I'll have to look up the exact details of it, but it's a nice little thing for if they need to print a tool up there, and it's way cheaper to print it up there than it is down here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, one of the reasons that they canceled the shuttle program was because of cost, right? The cost was too high for the risk, I guess, that it was taking in tax dollars with some of the tragedies, unfortunately, that they've had. But at the end of the day, it's nice. Again, somebody pointed out that it's private enterprise that has made all of this possible in the U.S. again, and for many agencies around the world that take advantage of NASA and their space program. And I couldn't be more excited because now I can make cooler rockets.
Yeah, and you know what? Actually, I didn't realize the data was available out there, but thanks for being a public administration company. They have all the information about NASA's 3D printer and how it prints in zero-G. It came out in 2014, and they show all the various different tools they've printed on it. I'd have to look more into the technicalities. Astronauts who pioneer the solar system and Mars will use additive manufacturing to print 3D supplies such as tools and equipment. So NASA has always been big on 3D printing, and as you can see, these tools actually look pretty darn good. I don't see any layer lines there. I'd say they did a good job.
I think they did an excellent job.
Though, I mean, I wouldn't mind manning a support call to the ISS. That would be something kind of wild to go through. Have you checked your eccentric nuts?
Do you have any Z-wobble in that? Houston, we have a problem. We've got too much Z-wobble, and our eccentric spacers are not quite eccentric.
Your acceleration's too high. You just jostled the space station's position by half a K.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. All right, let's jump into the questions. We've had enough fooling around now. Our first question tonight comes from Simon Whiteley, and he asks, he did message us. He is SKW Diesel 1 on the live stream, and it was about his filament twisting. And he says that he did solve the issue with the gears. They were just a little bit misaligned, and that was causing his issue. Everything seems to be working fine. Thanks for your advice, he says, and you were the first one to see my issue in the correct way. After looking at the drive gears very closely, I reset them. So everything is working very well for him. Now, on to Luke Murray's problem. He has a sanity check issue, and we've taken a look at the screenshot that he sent us. There's a squiggle under the word error at around the 851 line, and he gives us a screenshot. Couldn't find the specific file in Explorer, and unfortunately, it's not the file that he's looking for. What he has to do is change the filament change unload length, and it can't be equal, or it can't be less than or equal to the extrude maximum length. So you're going to have to change that number. Once you've changed that number, it should be just fine. What do we got going on in chat there, Brian?
Not a whole lot. We're just talking about issues going on by 3D printing in zero gravity. What I wanted to address with this last issue is sanity check.h in general. Now, unlike traditional errors, sanity check is kind of a check before the main compile check. And what this was written by the Marlin team. And if there's any parameters they think are going to have an issue where it would compile, but it won't work properly, sanity check goes and checks all the different various parameters. So for instance, if you have a filament runout sensor and you've enabled it, but you haven't enabled advanced pause, sanity check.h will tell you it's not enabled. So unlike other errors where you want to click on them, go to that location, when you see a sanity check error, read the error message that it generates, because that's telling you what is wrong with your code. Now, you may need to search up those parameters, but it kind of tells it black and white. In this case, that your filament retraction length is greater than your maximum extrusion allowance. And there's a setting in, I think it's just configuration.h, that says, what's the maximum extrusion length we'll let you do before we consider it to be kind of running away, right? If someone goes and spins the wheel and it keeps on extruding, there's a soft pause in there, and you can turn that off. I don't think I've ever came across an issue of keeping it on, but you can set it to even higher, like 500 if you're really worried about it. Just make sure that in this case, your extrusion distance limiter is greater than what you set for your filament runout distance.
There you go. So the next question comes from Andrew Bell. He says, evening, I'm having some major issues with my Ender 3. First, my Big Tree Mini E3 version 1.2 had some issues in which it would not accept any new firmware or software. This went back to Amazon and I got a new version 2 and TFT to go with it. I installed all of this and now I have no power at all. I bought a new power supply thinking it could have been this, but no, I have just installed this and I have nothing. I have no fans or anything. All of the fuses have been checked and are okay. Any suggestions?
Okay.
Because I'm full out of them. Thanks in advance. This is from Andy in the UK. Andy, I'm going to say probably what's wrong is you've got two wires that are switched, because this has happened and I've seen it happen. If you by mistake have reversed the positive and the negative wires coming off the power supply into the board, you will get nothing. It absolutely nothing. The power supply will spin up, but nothing else will send out a signal. And you could damage your board that way as well. So what I would do is go and find online the spec for that board and find out exactly which is the positive and which is the negative. I wish I had a board in front of me. I think I do.
I believe they're indicated on the bottom side, are they not?
They are sometimes. Sometimes,
yeah.
Sometimes they are. I don't have one in front of me.
I've only got an E3 dip in front, or an E3, a TFT E3 in front of me. Sorry, guys.
Ben Brady says, buy a better board, Andy. I don't think that's the case. I think at the end of the day, what it is, I've got a board here.
I've got Creality boards. That doesn't do us any good.
But. I've got one too. But on the bottom, it will show plus or minus, or at least it should. That should focus. There we go. Should say on the bottom plus or minus for where your power goes in. And if it doesn't, you can pull up the spec on that board right from Big Tree, and it will show you exactly which one is plus or minus. Mm-hmm. Peter Reynolds says, I've noticed when I print on my resin printer that with white, it tends to yellow when I put it under UV light. Is there anything I can do about that? No, there isn't. Just get some white paint and paint it white.
I mean, you could be overexposing it too.
You could be. The problem with white resin is it will always yellow in UV light, no matter what. I've had white resin pieces that I've not only printed, but I've cast in white resin, Smooth Cast 300, for example, and over time it does yellow. And that's because of the exposure to UV light. Now, that being said, that's why I never print in white. I always print in another color that's not affected by UV light so much, like I'll print in a blue or a green or even a gray. And typically you won't have that issue. And then, of course, you can just spray paint over it or use acrylic paints and paint over it, and that should solve your problem. But unfortunately, all white resin is going to yellow over time.
Mm-hmm. Trevor Rickard was asking, got a quick question. Which one's better, direct drive or Bowden tube? That's never a quick answer.
That's never a quick answer.
They each have their benefits. Myself, I do prefer direct drive in most circumstances, just because I have more direct torque on the nozzle. Therefore, I can have a lower K factor if I'm using linear advance. The downside, of course, with that is you're adding extra weight to your carriage. And so if you intend on doing high acceleration stuff, such as on an XYZ kind of cube printer there, you can't go as fast because you're just going to get vibration from that extra load. So if you're a slow and steady printer, direct drive is great. You also lose a bit of vertical build volume depending on the extruder assembly you use. But really, the choice is yours. If you have a Bowden tube, the only risk is you're going to have a harder time printing flexibles. And if you're not getting into that realm, Bowden tubes are fine. Just get an all metal hot end to extend the number of materials you can use with it.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I have both types of machines in my house, both direct drive and Bowden. I use the direct drives really specifically for doing flexibles for more than anything else. But I use a Bowden tube for everything else that I do, from wood to PETG to just about any other material. Now, other materials that are a little softer, like flexible, and Brian was saying this, is they are going to be better with a direct drive. They can be done with Bowden. It has to be a specific type of Bowden extruder on there, but yeah, other than that, that's really the only difference. For me, I don't prefer either. At the end of the day, they both work for me, so I don't have a preference of which one I prefer. And I got to stop slouching in my chair today.
Getting too cozy.
I am. All right. We have a question from Pedro Ballister. He says, can Marlin firmware work with the filament sensor, and can it resume printing after power loss? Thank you, Pedro. Pedro, yes, it can. These are things that weren't built into older versions of the Marlin firmware, but I believe, and Brian will correct me if I'm wrong here, that both of those have been implemented now in the latest version, or in the latest couple of versions of Marlin. But when you are compiling them, you really should compile them in Visual Studio Code. What do you say about that, Brian?
Yeah, you pretty much nailed it on the gun there. All these Marlin features have been there at least since Marlin 2.0. I believe they were there since 1.1.7 or so. The power loss recovery code was provided by Creality and was incorporated into the main firmware back then. It still seemingly works all the time. I find I lost my offsets too often when I had power cycles, so I don't use that feature myself, but all the filament runout sensor settings are all in there for the smart ones, for the basic switches. They have filament width sensor options now if you have one of those. There's pretty much no features that haven't been incorporated into Marlin. There's even a new one that I haven't played with much called G6, which is direct instruction. And if you enable that, of course, you have to disable linear advance. But once you enable that, you can run your Marlin firmware as if it is, what's that other one right now? It slipped my mind. What's that other firmware that with the Raspberry Pis?
Oh, yeah, I can't remember the name
Clipper.
of it. Clipper, that's the one, yes.
Yeah. So it can operate your printer like Clipper. I haven't really played with it much because I have been using linear advance, but they're always adding new features and they're always supporting new hardware. There's a fairly good chance before the product has come to the market that the OEM has worked with them to get those features in. But as you've seen, there's new printers coming out every day, and that seems to be the main focus, is upgrading all the profiles to support them.
All right, Tim is asking, problem I've never seen before, new printer. He says, I'm getting zits, looks like Braille, on my models, printing in Vase mode. I've tried different filaments, the same results. Thanks for any help. Tim, what's happening there is that at some point it's over extruding a little bit too much plastic when it's making its rounds in the Vase mode. And if you're seeing them all in a line or you're seeing them staggered throughout, that would be helpful to know. But I think what's happening is that your extrusion multiplier is not set right. What would you think about that, Brian?
Well, there's actually a lot going on with that because I do have some issues with Cura, with zits, and there's a plethora of factors. So I'd like to see how complex your geometry is, how many moves there are, and there are a few settings that people have been recommending to reduce the zit count, especially with Cura slices. Now, I went back to Simplify 3D just to do a test, and none of those issues arise, especially with the more complex geometries such as circles. But I did notice, I got some video clips of it, that it does do awkward pauses at certain points with at least Cura 4.7. I haven't done enough yet with Cura 4.8 to see, but looking at some of my prints that have been coming off with circular holes, I have noticed some vibration. And before I miss this here, we got a super chat from Joseph Jolly.
Yes.
Thanks so much, Joseph.
I wanted to answer the question first, and then I was going to acknowledge it. Tim says it is random. He says test files came with the printer on small Vase sliced in S3D. So they've been sliced in S3D.
And it's still happening, eh?
That part of that has to do with what is the coasting? Turn coasting off.
Well, it depends. I mean, if this is coming from the OEM and the files are sliced already, maybe Tim, send that G-code file my way. I just want to have a look at it. But usually blobs are a result of either material-like issues where you've got too much pressure built up in the hot end, and then as soon as it slows down for anything, it tries to compensate and catch up, and then you get zits. Or if you have awkward pauses in your code and there's still pressure built up in the nozzle, it has the chance to kind of pulsate out. So yeah, send us some photos and send us that G-code file. I'm curious.
I'll actually be talking to Tim later this week about something else. So I'll try and get those pictures from him.
Yeah, Ben, you're saying about these changes to 4.7.1, which I've heard a lot about, but I haven't dug too much into it. Just let me know in the chat if 4.8 is working out for you, because I haven't had a lot of time to give it the time of day.
Okay, Andrew Humphrey, is it wise to put an FDM printer, Creality CR-10 SC, on a UPS? Is it wise? It can't hurt. I know that if you're susceptible to brownouts or blackouts in your area, yes, it can be beneficial to you. So it gives you time to put the printer into pause mode. And I know that the CR6 SE has a resume function after power outage, but sometimes that resume function can get a little squirrely. So having a UPS and being able to pause it yourself is probably a good idea. It's not necessary.
Just remember that a UPS, especially if you're heating your bed, your runtime on a UPS, even for a single printer, will be, on average, I think my 15 VA here can get me 45 minutes under heavy loads. So if you anticipate blackouts being longer than an hour, then I would not bank on a UPS helping you. But if you have just little power blips here and there, or you have dirty power or something, it helps. It does help to buffer it.
Andrew's also asking, what Pi are you using for your Octoprint instances?
I'm not using Octoprint right now because my machines, they do require a bit of TLC. As you can see, I've got plenty behind me here in pieces doing different things. Really, Octoprint was a lot of fun, but Thanks, Tim, for the $10.
Thanks, Tim, for the $10.
Money worth out of that.
I wanted to use the pause that you had to kind of sneak that in.
Yeah. We don't use Octoprint a lot these days. It is cool. It's got some cool features. I saw Tom did a video on the AI spaghetti detection and all that. And that don't get me wrong, that's cool features. But for what we're doing, especially with my machines, I'd rather spend the time setting it up. I've got a Wise Cam watching it, and my prints are 6 to 7 days sometimes. So I'm not too concerned with trying to cancel in the middle of the day. There are always people around here to, cancel the machine itself.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I've experimented with Octoprint many times. I've experimented with AstroPrint as well, which is, at the end of the day, AstroPrint's kind of a little nicer interface than Octoprint, and it's a little bit easier.
It's kind of the simplified 3D.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Operational software. You pay a little bit, you get some extra features, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's very easy to monitor from your phone, other than you don't have to go through a whole bunch of different setups like you do with Octoprint to get things to work on your phone for remote viewing. But at the end of the day, there are simpler solutions out there. I know Creality is reworking their camera right now, the 3D viewer, because they've had some issues with the software for it and the app for Android. They've got an app for iOS, but the Android app seems to be in development hell. And right now, if you have an Android version of it, you can't log in to Creality with it anymore. I know I always seem to get a failure, but I can still go in by hitting the little icon at the top of the screen. And let me just, I'll just kind of pull up my phone here. It's asking me for my biometrics. I'll just kind of show you guys here real quick what's going on. So if you look at this, you can see that I've got my, here, I'll get my head out of the way. You can see that I've got my information, but when I hit that button, I get a fail.
Nice. So the whole authentication's down.
Yeah, the whole authentication, but there's a little button up here at the top. If you just press that, here, let me just press that. It's all in Chinese characters. If you press that, it will take you in and connect to your camera. So, I don't know. Oh, there's the camera turned on right now. So you can see the camera's turned on, but you can't do much with it unless you got it connected to the printer. Okay? So hopefully they get the Android version of that worked out really, really quickly.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Pob TV, any suggestions for joining a 6mm belt to a Z-axis synchronization loop?
Yeah, don't do it.
Yeah,
just don't do it. The reason is basically the material, because I was looking at this when I was designing my printer recently too, about just building my own custom loop length. The problem with it is whatever adhesion method you use is going to be the weakest point in the belt going forward. And if the belt, if that never flexed, you might be okay. But as you add flex in, then you all get all that additional material working in there. Even welding with additional plastic may create a minor offset basically between those gear points, which may or may not impact the quality of your print. So just buy a pre-built one if you can. If it's a little too long, throw another pulley in there and add some tension. But don't go around trying to weld yours. And the other thing is, don't go out buying those steel reinforced belts. They don't work very well for the printers at all.
No, they don't, and I've tried them myself. What I would suggest to you is just don't do it. Just make sure that your X gantry is level to the frame of the machine. If you don't have it level to the frame of the machine, that's where you're going to get a lot of problems. And sometimes it's very hard to level it, but in other times it's quite easy. What I use is some of these machinist blocks. I have 2 sets of these things. And I just stack them on one another, and I bring my X gantry down so that it rests on top of here on both sides. Then I make sure everything's nice and tight. Then I'll slide them out, and I will home my machine. And I will know that that is level to the frame, not to the bed, to the frame. We're going to level the tool head to the bed a little bit later, or tram it, as is the proper term. Other than that, that's the way I would get around having that belt. It's nonsense. We've got a printer here right now. It's up on the testing bench that has that belt. And I'm very curious as to how it's going to work, because it also has 2 motors, one for each side, the left and right. So if those, for whatever reason, are not in sync, it's going to be a disaster.
Yeah, you got it.
Now, there is, I saw another question here. Oh, from Brad Pond. He says, how do you guys clean your extruder drive gear? The one that over time builds up some residual filament in the teeth. What's the easiest, quickest, simplest, yet most effective way? First and foremost, get in there with something like this, which is a little brass brush. I would blow out, if you've got some canned air or you've got a compressor nearby, blow out all of the excess residue. That's probably going to get the most of it out, and then this will just clean up the last little bits. So that's what I would do.
Yep, that's all I do too. Just a brass brush in there. You can even technically scrub it while it's printing if you're brave.
Yeah,
just get in there and just wipe it up and down. That way it's rotating, and then if you have a dual gear, you can hit both gears there.
Okay, so let's get on to our next question before we get to some more here in the chat. This is from Saul Kodo or Kudu. He says, "Hey guys, I'm getting some bad horizontal lines on my prints. The thing is, though, it's only happening with larger models. When I print something even half the size, it comes out perfect on my Ender 3 V2. Is calibrated," he says, "and everything runs smoothly. This is printing the model horizontally. The same thing happens when I print it vertically. Also, I have printing speed at 50. I am thinking at this point it may be a 3D model itself. I have included pictures. Unfortunately, oh, there's the pictures right there. Let's look at the first one. That to me looks like you've got some y-axis backlash. So what you want to make sure is that your y-axis and your x-axis belts are not over tightened, and I think that's what's going on here, just taking a look at this picture. So that's what I would check, Saul.
And make sure you didn't change your accelerations either, because you know, the Y bed for any printer is always the heaviest component, so you can't assume that the acceleration is going to be the same whichever way you go. So, yeah.
Okay, so our next question is from Fun Ghoul, who is also in our chat this evening. He says, "I purchased a titanium heat break for my stock CR-10S, and now the extruder is skipping while trying to print in the first layer test using PLA." That's going
to be a clog.
Yeah, that's a clog because of heat creep. And that's usually what happens. Okay, now his email that he sent, he says, "I've been following your channel for quite a while now. Lots of great information is presented. I have a question based on one of your videos, and I think it's the one where we get parts for the CR10. And he says, okay, it's the exact same question that's in chat here. His name is Robert. Okay, Robert Funghoul. I think what's happening is you're getting heat creep, or what's happening is your retraction is too far. Those are the two things that will affect that. What's that, Brian?
I was going to say, for sure, yeah, that retraction is a big one. When you go to an all-metal heat break, you need to drop the retraction down to below 2 millimeters. I usually say below 1.5.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you start clogging. Now, if it's clogged right away, or it doesn't seem like it's doing a lot of retractions, then it's entirely possible that your nozzle and your heat break have a little micro gap inside the heat block, and sometimes that will build up and create blockages there for you. So reduce that retraction. If that doesn't work, you may want to go pull that filament out, heat up the hot end, and then reattach your nozzle, retorque it accordingly, do whatever you need to, and that usually fixes most of those issues.
Andrew Humphrey is asking, would an unlevel tool head cause stringing? I've got persistent stringing. No, it will not cause stringing. I will tell you exactly what's causing your stringing. It's moisture in your filament. And if you're using PETG, get that stuff into a bag with some desiccant or into a dryer of some sort to dry it out, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to reduce your stringing. If it is PLA that is stringing, again, it's got moisture in it. That is the primary cause of stringing in any filament. It is because you've got too much moisture in the filament itself. Lewis Warnell, he says, "Hey, while using Octoprint lost power when the Raspberry Pi connected, then when print resumed, the print resolution was reduced from 100% to something like 20%. How can I prevent that from happening?" That seems strange.
Loss of power with the Pi connected, then when print resumed, the print resolution. Now, when you say resolution, do you mean print detail or do you mean scale? Those are important questions to explain to that. It sounds like definitely something became desynced. Remember that your printer is just a dumb device when you're using, especially when you're using Octoprint. It just feeds it commands, and if you rip that cable out, it will just halt there and say, all right, I'm just going to hang here, wait for my next command, keep my nozzle hot, keep my bed hot, keep the position. And then if you were to come back and plug in your Pi and there was some magical resume button, let's just say, and you hit that, the printer's going to keep going. Now you're probably going to have a big heat crater or swollen things just from dribbled filament coming out of that. And it may under extrude a little bit for those first few lines because filament dribbled out. But it should be able to return exactly where it started from if the third-party printer management system knows exactly which line of G-code to return to and then continue printing.
All right, so the next question that we've got is from Paul Thompson. It's quite a long one. Basically, what it's dealing with here is Z-banding is basically what's happening here. And if everything on your machine is done correctly, you can still get Z-banding. And the reason I say that, he does a lot of tabletop miniature houses and steins and things like that that are actually beautiful. I wish I could bring up the picture. But at the end of the day, I can tell you exactly what's happening here. When you're getting this Z-banding, not only does the printer, the vibration in the printer cause a little bit of that, but also the surface that it's on. So if the table that it's on has any sort of movement to it, like if you're on an IKEA table, which are the absolute worst for putting 3D printers on, that's going to add to that. It's going to just amplify that as it gets to certain movements. And that whole table will move. And I've seen it do that on the tables that we have here because we have tons of IKEA tables here. I finally built specific benches and shelves for all of my 3D printers. I don't put anything on an IKEA table anymore except when I have to show it off in a video, just because it is a big problem when it comes to that excess Z-banding. Brian, what about you?
This is why we put in the Costco Wayland shelves here.
Yes, I have those in my place too.
And you know what? We both Richard and I got very nice pine wood and replaced the steel grates. And yeah, it's oh my gosh, what's that thing cost? 200 Canadian?
Yeah, it's 200 Canadian at Costco. Yeah.
Yeah, so like 150. It's rated for 1,500 pounds per shelf or something ridiculous, and my printer cannot shake that shelf. So. Make sure you get a solid surface. I think, was it CNC Kitchen that did that video on getting the concrete block under your printer?
Yeah.
That's an option too.
Yeah.
It's all about rigidity. And if you know anything about center of gravity and all that, you want the center of gravity to be below the machine. You don't want that bed to be the center of gravity.
Yeah, exactly.
And before I jump too far, Pure Life RC01 TJ, thank you for the $10.
Super chat.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. TJ, he says, this is my last night here. I'm sorry to hear that. Until the new year. He says, I'm moving, and with the holidays coming up, it will be until then before I get set up again. Well, I wish you all the success in your move. I wish you a very happy holidays with you and your family as well. And I know how stressful the holidays can be, and I know how stressful moving can be, so I wish you very good thoughts, and we're thinking about you as you move in Pure Life.
And we'll still be here if you're having issues with those printers getting set up. I know you know your stuff, but we're here.
There you go.
Andrew, how are you? What do you recommend for removing moisture from filament? I'd prefer not to put in my oven. Yeah, don't put it in your oven. Please don't put it in your oven. If you're going to go the cheap, hacky route like I am, go onto Amazon and buy the Salton circular-looking food dehydrator. I ran that machine. I've run temperature probes on it. The 60-degree mark on there is about 55 Celsius inside, and it moves air and forces it across filament. You can go to fancy filament dryers, and we've touched on a few of them here. I've got a couple that I'm reviewing, and I'm going to tell you right now, the review is not that stellar. Just get the Salton thing and just, yeah, you can only dry one roll at a go, but man, does it work.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I use, I don't typically dry my filament. I'll put it into a big, large sealed container that I have. Typically, that's the way I store it, or I will store it in a bag with some desiccant packs like this. This is a vacuum bag from Ebos, because I've been using the Ebos Cyclops, which is their filament dryer, which works very well. However, I can't do a lot of filament at one time. At least with the dehydrators that you can find on Amazon for relatively cheap, you can do 2 or 3 rolls of filament at the same time, depending on how many stacks you have. Yeah.
One I use here, it's on sale for $40 Canadian.
There you go.
You can't beat that, guys. Now, the only downside with this model in particular is that if you notice the trays are in there. I ended up dremeling out the trays myself, but if you have a CR10 or bigger, you can print an insert to snap, basically go in between the lid and between the bottom. And the Sultan, it's done great for, you can use it for actual dehydrating, but if you cut out all those middle spacers there, you're going to get enough for one reel in there. And in theory, you could feed the filament right out from there. But you'll see they've got air holes in the top, and so it's got a fan that blows through and keeps the air circulating. And that's been the biggest failure I've encountered so far with these filament dryers, is they don't circulate the air. Therefore, you have a temperature differential across your reel when you're drying it, and you may not get consistent drying results. So just take that into account. I am trying to save you guys a bit of money. I love some of the dehydrators that they've come out with, but if you're not in the market to spend a couple, like $100 for a good quality 3D printing one, you can't go wrong this route.
No, you're absolutely right about that. And Dwayne King is wanting you to put a link in the chat if you can.
Yeah, I just put an Amazon one in there, and no, it's not an affiliate one because I don't have my affiliate link set up. So it hopefully will redirect you to the appropriate Amazon of your country.
We should actually add one to our store over on Amazon.
Definitely. I bought 2 of these, and the only reason I bought 2 is because I lost the first one. So
there you go.
Yeah, it works. It works really well. Read into filament drying times, because they say sometimes 4 hours is what you require. And as well, too, everybody has these auto shut-off ones, these safe ones. This thing doesn't shut off, so be smart about it, but that's how I prefer things. Oh, Dwayne, Canadian. Perfect, man. Yeah, awesome. Take advantage, man. $40. That's the cheapest I've seen in a long time. I'd have to check my camel tracker, but let's see here. Yeah, that's actually the cheapest price right now than it's been in well over a year. Or sorry, since it came out in 2014. That's the cheapest price.
Well, there you go. So get them while they're hot, while they're available. What have you got on your printers right now, Brian, while we're waiting for some more questions to come in? We've covered all our email questions.
I've been printing some Mandalorian suits for folks. My buddy James at Allied Armorers has done a full suit for Halloween that I should probably pull up the photo here, actually. But I've done a few helmets for a few people, and the CR-10S V2 is going through a major rebuild at the moment. So right now it is not printable. So we've got my CR10 doing some runs there. We found out the cooling fan on the front of this CR10 just went on us earlier. It's not spinning, so we can't run that without clogging it. The Wanhao is printing more ABS parts for various projects around the house, and I'm still being too lazy to fire up my resin machine.
What am I printing? I am now starting to print stuff for the show. We've got, for our new show that's coming out, we will be doing a lot of stuff like this in the new show. We're going to be printing and painting, and I'm going to be teaching you guys how to paint, how to finish your models. Brian's going to come in from time to time showing his stuff off. Jess is going to be joining us for when we do armor type stuff or cosplay type stuff. We're going to talk a little bit about that in the new series. And it is called The Last Layer. The channel will be going up soon. We'll be launching hopefully by the end of the year or the 1st of January. I've got a lot more to print. Our first project is going to be Black Cat from Marvel Comics. She is a Spider-Man foe, or sometimes friend, sometimes love interest. I'm not sure what she is. And then our second project is going to be a tribute to Chadwick Boseman as the Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. As many of you know, Chadwick Boseman passed away due to complications with cancer, and I've gone back and watched other movies that starred Chadwick Boseman, and just to see his range as an actor, and he was a phenomenal actor. And I think it's only fair that being that we're Marvel fans and we're Black Panther fans, I think it only right to do a Black Panther tribute piece as our second piece, and then we are going to do Storm, Savage Land Storm, as our third piece. So those are the three pieces that we're going to be doing in 3 separate series on the last layer, and that's going to kick things off.
Awesome. And I just found the photo just to give you guys an idea to motivate you. My buddy James 3D printed his Mandalorian suit for Halloween, and this is 100% 3D printed. Now, except for, I'm going to say the baby, the child. The child, I believe, was the Costco toy, but everything else you see in this suit here was all 3D printed. Every single piece. So sometimes all it takes is a hard amount of finishing and sanding, but you can make 3D prints look real. Don't ever forget that. Printing is just the first step. And so between the 2 channels here, we're hoping to show you guys the ins and outs on how to get to that final stage. And if you want to follow James on his painting techniques, you can find him as Allied Armorers on Facebook. Myself, Jess, and James are all part of a little collective for cosplay printing here. And the work we're doing is so much fun right now. So yeah, if you're interested in learning more about that too, I think we just have a page right now. You can come check it out.
That looks fucking amazing.
That is amazing work. I'm blown away by what you guys have done. I don't cosplay anymore because I'm too old and too fat. I think if I shaved my head, I shaved my mustache off, I could probably go as Kingpin.
Now we're talking.
Purple dress pants, a white blazer, an ascot. What do you think?
I mean, I'm going as Jack Black's Spider-Man, apparently. So.
Funny that you say that, because we were talking about you the other day, my wife and I, and you remind us both of Jack Black with some of the stuff that you do.
Everybody tells me I look like Jack Black. I don't see it.
It's not the look. It's the mannerisms. It's the mannerisms.
Okay. All right, I'll give you that. I'm dramatic. I
know. Robert 954 says, where can I get some good filament vacuum bags? From your local grocer. They're called Ziploc bags. If you have a food dehydrator or a food vacuum sealer, you can use that as well. Those are what I recommend.
Pile of them. Most Canadian companies throw one in for every reel now.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're fully reusable.
And make sure you put your desiccant in there. If you want to seal them up like this was done using the EBOS filament vacuum pump. This is their specialty bags.
You can get that on AliExpress.
So you can get them on AliExpress, apparently, my wife is saying in the background.
I mean, if you have a Food Saver product, they look like essentially the same thing. You can also go to Walmart and buy what they call Space Saver bags if you really need some big bags. And what those are is they're like a regular Ziploc bag, but they've got that valve that Richard showed there, and you just attach your vacuum hose to it and suck out all the air and then press it closed. In all honesty, a Ziploc bag with a little piece of desiccant will be fine after you dry it. It's more when if you're looking at long-term holdings, or you print in an extremely humid environment, in which case you should be feeding your filament out of a dry box anyways. And we've got a great video on building your own dry box. Just look it up here. And I think it was, an IKEA bin and a couple of 3D printed parts?
Yes, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, it was cheap and nasty, and it held like 4 rolls, if I remember.
I'm actually going to find a photo for you guys of the last time I did cosplay. I have one in my Facebook here. So talk amongst yourself for a second while I find this.
Yeah. Give me something to talk about in the chat here. No Way's asking question. I'm about to print with PET G for the first time on an Ender 3 V2. Will the glass be a problem? And do you have any tips for me? Thanks. Well, PET G doesn't stick to glass as nicely as PLA in my experience. Glue stick's always a safe way to go. The biggest thing actually with an Ender though is to make sure to keep that temperature below about 240. If you start getting hotter than that, you're going to be risking messing with the Bowden tube assembly there. And without buying new parts, it's just a limitation of the machine. So print it slow, turn off your fan. I think my PEG, I liked it around 90 degrees on the bed. Make sure you're actually getting 90 degrees on the bed. Andrew's saying, or hairspray. I don't like hairspray for a couple of reasons. The first reason is if you don't take off your bed and apply it elsewhere, you're actually spraying all this accelerant and all sorts of compounds all over your machine, which can eventually lead to gunk buildup. It's akin to having a smoker in your house where it builds up over time. So it's just kind of a messy thing to work with. I have heard success stories with it, but anything I could buy in Canada, we can't get, what was it, Aquanet, I think it is they use.
Yeah, Aquanet stuff.
We can't get that here in Canada, and so the stuff we have ends up being quite oily and more lubricating than actual surface to grip onto. So try something small like an XYZ cube. Get those temperatures right, get your retractions right, and then see what it does. Now, if it's not printing or if it's not sticking, don't keep sticking it closer, because there's a certain point where PETG will actually start to adhere to that glass, and then when you pull it off, you actually take off divots of glass. So the proper balance is the key. I like PEI sheets myself, but it's really up to each person.
All right, so here's a blast from the past, you guys. Oh, why did I do that? There we go.
There we go. All right.
So that was the last time I cosplayed, and
that's only 9 years ago.
No, that's a lot longer than that.
Oh, okay, you posted it 9 years ago.
I posted it 9 years ago, but yeah, that was a lot longer than that. When did we do that event?
I was working at Canadian Diabetes.
So that's almost 20 years ago now. Yeah, that's about 20 years old. So that was the last time I cosplayed. How do you like them apples?
We're due.
Jones Soda.
Yeah, Jones Soda.
Oh man, I miss Jones.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, like you can get a bit of it these days. It's just not the same. Remember when you used to actually have to submit photos, like printed photos, to get it on the bottles?
Yeah.
Now it's all online with the voting. It's just not the same.
There you go. So now we're gonna wait for the the Wait King. I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
I'm Batman. But yes, I don't cosplay anymore. I just make stuff now.
Well, is that going to be the next week there?
You should have used hot glue on that bed, you know.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Next week it'll be hot glue. That's right. So Peter Reynolds, what is he saying? I was able to get Aquanet from Amazon.
You know, I think it was on Amazon, but it was an import, so it was stupidly expensive. I'm going to look now and see what, because it's an aerosol. So,
I don't like it.
Do they actually? Oh, yeah. I guess it's not. Yeah, it's not shipped by Amazon. So, $20 a bottle to give you guys an idea. And we can't ship it across the border normally. There is some very heavy restrictions on aerosols.
There you go. Came from state, took 2 weeks.
Yeah, that sounds about right. 2 weeks.
Peter, do not use hairspray on your printers. Don't use hairspray on your printers. Let your wife use it.
Buy the energetic flex plates or any other spring steel sheet, and you won't even think about bed adhesion again. I won't lie to you.
Yeah. Or you do what I do, and I use glue stick. That's my favorite thing. I like using glue stick.
Yeah, glue stick's cheap enough. And for those of you who don't understand why glue stick's awesome, glue stick is primarily PVA, which is a plastic compound similar to what's in glue gun sticks. It has a melting point of around 60 degrees. And so when you heat your bed up to that point, it actually liquefies it and gives it something for the filament to drag against. Now, we get the water washable ones, so when you wash your print under the sink afterwards, it all rinses away.
Yep.
Dave's saying Magic Goo. I did try Magic Goo, and I thought it was really cool, and it worked really well. But here I am banging everything now. When I used it, it worked great for about 5 prints. And then I had to reapply, and I looked at the cost and said, forget it. It's not worth it.
So the stuff that I use here's something that I don't use to stick things down to, but I use it to clean my LCD screens on my resin printers. And that is this stuff, LCD cleaner.
Oh, yeah.
I spray it onto the cloth, a microfiber cloth, so it's soft, it's not going to scratch. And don't spray it directly onto the screen, just spray it onto your cloth and then wipe it down. It will help to get any residual moisture on there if you've got it on. And it really does a nice job of cleaning up those LCD screens. I want to let you guys know that Brian and I have been working very hard to start building up a little bit of a stock, which you're going to start to see on our shopthefirstlayer.com. Pretty soon we're going to have some of the simple stuff that you guys need every day for your 3D printers. We'll start to carry thermistors, heater cartridges, and just simple stuff. So those are all going to be coming in the next month or two. We just have to do inventory on stuff that we've already ordered and stuff that we already have in stock, so we can get it all and take some pictures of it and get it all up onto our shopthefirstlayer.com. So if you are local in Calgary or in the surrounding area and you're calling us to help you with your printer, we will now have some limited parts. Right, Brian?
And yeah, exactly. I've been stocking some stuff up because, frankly, it's cheaper to order 40 or 50 of them at a go sometimes than it is to order one. So I've got some back stock parts here, and we want to make sure that, number one, that we have parts on hand for when people need it, and number two, so there are parts on hand for when you need it. So just keep your eye on the store there. We're just getting it rolling. As everyone knows, it's been an interesting year. So a lot of volatility, a lot of changes. So we're just getting everything kind of wrapped back in together into one big loop right now, which is also why you haven't seen any content coming out. And before I get another harassment for my BLV review, I think it's on this card. Truth be told, I recorded it about almost 3 months ago, I figure, whenever it came in there, and I have not had a chance to run the printer in between then. So I am trying to rush there. Ben's been providing some different bed adhesion products, and I haven't looked at any of these yet, but I see there's one in Canada here. Nanopolymer adhesive. Here's the thing. I go right to the website and they tell me it's $49. Now, why wouldn't I just buy a spring steel sheet over trying that? Unless, the bottom layer has to be completely smooth. If that's the only exception to the rule, then yes, go for these products. But, these spring steel sheets, guys, they are truly something different. They're not like the magnetic flex beds. They're not like Build Tack. Basically, if you take care of them, and when I say take care, I mean don't take a scraper to it. Don't go melting it with acetone, because that's going to dissolve it. Any of these PEI style sheets, especially the spring steel, because of the flexibility, you're going to get a more consistent print. Now, if you find there's lumps in it, chances are your bed underneath has lumps, and that's what I've found. So I appreciate all these companies coming out with these bed adhesion products, but unless you're going to hit that $19.95 price mark, I'm sorry, $50 is just too much.
I'm of the same mind. I mean, get yourself a piece of glass, get yourself a piece of, or a glue stick from Staples or from Walmart, and the purple glue stick, in my opinion, is the best glue stick. And it works, and you're still under $30 all in. Even for a large piece of glass, you're under $30 all in. So at the end of the day, it works very well. Somebody is asking here about blue tape. That's from Pab TV. Says comment on blue masking tape. Now, blue masking tape works, but here's the problem. Blue masking tape over time is very expensive. So
it is.
Get yourself a piece of glass. Use some of these little guys, these little spring clips, or bowl clips, or whatever they call them where you are. And at the end of the day, a piece of glass, hold that down to your bed, get yourself some glue stick. You'll never have a sticking problem. And if you just let the bed cool and you don't mess with it, just let it come back down to regular temperature, your print will just pop right off. It works every time. Peter Reynolds says mirror tiles. I have suggested that in the past. I still believe in mirror tiles because they heat up more evenly. But if you can't get mirror tiles in the size that you want, usually a piece of glass is the way to go.
Andrew Humphrey was asking, but my CR6 SE presses on the bed to level, so it has a BL Touch.
Yeah.
Won't that the PEI spring steel sheet? Absolutely not. The BL Touch is designed to be a zero pressure system. How it basically works is you've got a dangling pin here that comes down, and when it touches the bed, there's nothing above it, so it pushes the pin inside. It's just like your hand. There's no tension there, right? It pushes it back in, and then as soon as the magnetic pickup sensor inside the BL Touch says, hey, I can see this, it pulls its probe up higher. There's no downward tension whatsoever, and I hope that has never come across in the 3D printing community as a thing. The BL Touch physically comes in contact with the surface. It does not apply any pressure.
There you go. We've got time for, actually, we don't have any more time, but I'll take Around the Yard Fun because we haven't heard from him yet. He says, what's the best filament? And the best filament is what you can afford.
Absolutely.
Filaments I like the Arion filament. I like filaments.ca's what is it? Their line. Econofill. I've got some right here. Oh, this is from Arion. Like I said, I like the Arion stuff. I like the Econofill.
Econofill refills. Those are kind of fun.
Yeah. There's some really good ones out there. And at the end of the day, it just works.
I was just going to say, just buy what is within your budget. Yeah. Just know what you're working with. So with myself, I do a lot of volume printing, so I do focus on price point. And here in Canada, the best bang for your buck is a tie right now between Sandoz Filaments. I'm trying to remember what the gentleman in Quebec, his company's called. He's got a filament company there. And then, of course, filaments.ca. You're going to find it for about $20 to $23. Dwayne asking, are the refills worth it? It all really depends. Now, I mean, as I said, with these, I could go through one of these a day on some of my machines. Yeah, so when I'm buying 15 or 20 rolls, do I really want to have 15 or 20 spools sitting around? No, I'm going to get these. It does take me an extra minute to pop on the new one and go forth, but it's just a little better for the environment. I don't think there's any actual cost savings. Last time I checked, and this was a long time ago, there was a suggestion that the weight was calculated on these ones without the reel, and the ones with the reel had the 1 kilogram calculated in there, and that's where the price difference came from. I never saw anything to prove that. It seems that you still get the 1 kilograms of usable mass per reel. So really, it was just kind of, I had the reels, and they had it in stock sometimes, and then I just went back to ordering full-size reels. Really, I'm going to tell you right now, there are some premium filaments out there. Those I might buy singular rolls here and there, like I've got a rainbow one behind me, but primarily I'm buying gray PLA at whatever the best market rate is, and I'm buying it from sellers that I can contact if there's something wrong. So we had an issue probably about 2 years ago where there was a dud batch of filament from filaments.ca, and I contacted them, and they recalled the whole batch. They said they just sent out new reels, and that's the kind of company I want to support. Is someone who stands behind their product. And if I have an issue printing my filament, I message them and they give me information. They're more than happy to help. So factor that into your cost factor. Whatever you buy on Amazon, whether it's Arion, Sunlu, I don't even know half the brands anymore. Don't buy Amazon Basics if you do come across the stuff. It was trash when I used it. But buy something that the company stands behind and someone that will work with you to achieve your printing goals.
And with that, that's a great segue. We are over time now, and I want to thank you guys all for joining us this evening and staying with us and asking your questions. And thank you for the super chats. It does go a long way to helping us to create new content and come out and help you guys with this show and give you a live show every week. So until we see you guys next time, remember that the first layer is always your foundation to a great print. Bye!
Bye for now.
All right, we're out.